Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Don't Talk If You Don't Know, the unofficial official podcast dedicated to all things high-level teamfight tactics in North America. This is the night before Monsters Attack Regionals. My name is Frodan, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Bryce Esports Law Blum. How you doing, Bryce?
I'm doing great. I'm going to have some sort of silly comment to make about the weather here in Seattle, and then something about my real life, and it's going to be very facetious. But I'm very excited for regionals.
Great.
Are we really going to leave this Bryce at the bottom here?
I actually I thought I had it changed, but I did not, so I'm changing it on the fly. Anyways, Admirable, welcome to the show. First time that you've been on it. People might not actually know much about you outside the fact that you cast TFT, so why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit for anybody who's seen you for the first time?
I mean, I've been in competitive gaming pretty much my entire life, and I started out casting stuff actually in Magic. It was like local state tournament events that they were broadcasting to promote stores and things like that. Hearthstone is where everything took off, and then TFT was probably the most enamoring game I feel like I've ever actually played. I remember it was like the week that TFT came out, Dan and I are like casting a Hearthstone tournament. We're like, yeah. We're like bringing his laptop over to the side and like using a trackpad to play TFT stuff on there. And that was just kind of what became my life after that. TFT casting for me didn't start until I think it was like one event in set 4. Maybe one event or two events in set 5. But you know, I'm just happy to be in the scene right now. It's the competition again. It's just pretty much driven my entire life. And so to be able to be a part of promoting the tournament side of it, that's really where my heart is at.
All right. Well, he's going to be filling in for Bryce. Bryce is not joining us for this episode. He's traveling to Scotland to celebrate his dad's 76th birthday. He's going golfing in Scotland because that's where golf originated. The dude is a man of culture, apparently. And so he's not casting regionals either, unfortunately. He couldn't miss it. It's like something he needs to do with his dad before his dad is no longer able to travel. But Admirable will be not only, of course, hosting this podcast episode with me, but also casting with me this weekend. So glad to have you, Nate. All right, let's check in with our guests. First off, let's welcome Aesah back to Don't Talk If You Don't Know. Aesah, man, we've missed you. It seems like you took a step back away to go back to poker, I'm assuming is correct. How's life been for you, man?
Life's been good. I feel like back when I was like focused on streaming, I never realized this until I took a step back, but I feel like I was thinking about like work, streaming TFT like 24/7. So it's definitely been good to take a step back from that and like go outside.
Oh, wow. Look at this guy. He went outside. Holy moly. He's the O word.
Yeah.
Ace, talk to me. What is outside like? What happens when you go outside?
It's kind of weird, actually. Like, I don't know. You should try it for yourself. Like, I can't explain it.
No, nice try, man. Nice try.
Yeah.
Oh,
no amount of sunshine,
he almost got me. He almost got me, dude.
Gonna get me outside to stop me from playing video games. Yeah, right.
Well, like, you could like talk to people like in real life, and then there's a lot less like misunderstanding because like when someone in your Twitch chat just says something that would normally make me tilted, but then if they told me in person, I would probably just be like, oh, like they don't mean any harm by it. So
I see. So it's been important to take a step back for your mental reset.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And one last question that I'm gonna check with our other guests is: do you feel like that's helped your game in any capacity? Do you feel like as a result you can go into regionals with a more clear mind because you are competing in regionals?
Yeah, I think having like good mental for anything like at all, but like definitely for a competitive game is really important. Like how well like you know the game itself obviously is extremely important, but like I think a lot of times like if I had to choose between like an extra like 20 hours of prep or like being like my A game mentally for the tournament, like I would choose being mentally doing well.
All right. I like that answer, and I'm happy to dive in more. But first, let's welcome dpei to the show for the very first time. Welcome, man. How you doing? I want you to introduce yourself to the show, to the people who might be seeing you for the very first time, or maybe have only seen your name on leaderboards or in ladder.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, great to be on. My name is dpei. I used to be a professional Overwatch League coach for the Los Angeles Gladiators, and then the Vancouver Titans for about the past 6 years of my life, I decided to take at least a year off to kind of explore streaming and playing TFT competitively full time. So that's kind of why you've seen me a lot more this time around. I've played TFT kind of since the inception, but like in random droves, I suppose, like basically when there was OWL off season, which are like really, really long. So that's kind of my backstory, and what brought me here right now is my love of the game of TFT. Yeah.
What was it
fantastic.
like going from like a first person shooter team game to going to a solo player strategy game? Like how does that feel like in the competitive gaming world?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I was coaching, so like I can't actually aim. It's like all good. Like if you've seen me try to like dodge Zephyrs or like out mechanic people at the last second in TFT, trust me, I am old. Like, yeah, it's pretty bad. But yeah, I kind of always knew that my mechanics weren't that good. So I think card games and strategy games kind of suit me better. And coaching was always going to be more like X's own O strategy and also a lot more like people management skills and team culture skills. So like it's very, very different because I'm competing more individually too.
Okay. Well, that's really, really fascinating. But I want to hear a little bit more about your follow-up comments about like from Aesah talking about mental, and you're a coach, so obviously you always factor that in. Do you feel like that is something, because people when we were first learning about you, they were talking about how your coach experience really come into play in that kind of capacity? But also at the same time, I feels like whenever I tune in randomly, I'm not sure about your mental, or are you playing it for stream? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? What's going on DPei TV?
Actually, like personality wise, I think a problem is that like I'm better when other people are in crises, just like in general in my life. Like I think I'm very like calm and relaxed when other people have problems, but when I have problems, I do tend to like have like a lot of anxiety and freak out. And I think sometimes I play it up for stream just for reference, but like sometimes I'm not. And yeah,
Right.
like it's quite different from coaching yourself to like yeah, it's just very weird. I don't know. I think I just like am better as someone who manages than someone who plays, but I don't know. I'm really enjoying playing. It's a completely different mindset. I didn't care if I didn't get that much sleep the night before a game if I needed to study. Like, for example, like there was Asia OWL and then North American OWL. Like I would watch Asia like early in the morning so that I could just see like, oh, like how are they playing this meta, blah blah blah. It's basically just a preview of like what's being played today, right? I just want to be up to date on all the games, so I would do that a lot. But maybe my condition wasn't the best. I would value sleep a lot, but it just wasn't the most important thing, since performing live isn't the same thing as a coach. I have a lot of time to think between games and between maps, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's quite a shift, I would say, but a really interesting shift just because I've always been a competitor. It's just these mental games like golf, TFT, poker, I feel like the level of mental fortitude that you have to have is just it's its own skill set.
Enormous.
I think. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And one thing that was particularly interesting, I mean, you said it yourself, coaches sometimes feel like it's easier to manage somebody else. Doctors make the worst patients, right? So in that sense, it could be like people who are supposed to help keep others mental on track maybe struggles to do it themselves. Is that fair to say, DPei?
Yeah, I think so. Like psychiatrists or like therapists needs their own therapists.
Exactly.
And it's lame because they don't take their advice. Like I will never take my own advice. Like I'm the worst. I don't preach what I teach, or I don't do what I teach sometimes, so like, but I believe in it. I just don't believe in it enough at that moment. I'm a very stubborn person. So
sure.
Yeah, very, very different. I think you hit the nail on the hammer there.
All right. Aesah, we talk a little bit about mental and everything like that, but I'm particularly interested in kind of like a little bit hearing about your state of things. Do you plan on just kind of keeping TFT where it is? Are you trying to phase out of it? I think a lot of people are curious about your like long-term plans right now. Is this potentially your last regionals that you're going to compete in?
It could be, yeah. I think that's pretty likely. I haven't entirely decided what I'm going to do. But yeah, I think it's most likely that I will not be like trying to stream TFT full time like I was doing in the past year. I'll probably stream like occasionally. You know how like Socks will like stream every once in a while or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of, I haven't decided, but that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. And why compete in regionals again? I don't know. I guess it probably depends a lot on how much I like the set.
Okay. Well, we know how scary you can be if you're putting your mind to it. I hope that you'll stick around. Maybe the new competitive news somewhere down the road, because obviously Riot's going to have to announce what the new 3 sets will end up structuring like, but we'll just have to wait until that news comes in. Let's talk a little bit about everything that's happened since the last episode as we transition, because that was part of it. We mentioned Aesah in the previous episode, by the way, if you didn't see it, that you were transitioned away. But this is the news about how we got here to the North American Regional Final, starting off with LCQ. So these were the last 2 spots that were given out to Yunwolf and Robovan Kenobi. Now, a lot of people don't really know too much about Yunwolf, but the first thing I gotta say is, Robovan's like a really strong player in tournaments, even though his LP doesn't reflect it at times. So it's cool to see him do well. It was kind of heartbreaking to see Prestivan get 3rd and AMD get 4th. These are 2 players I think also a lot of players were like expecting to do well, especially with AMD and his bonus points, not able to get it. But it was a very fun tournament. Admirable, you were able to catch it in chat. Like, what were some of your thoughts when you watched LCQ?
It's been a long time, I think, since I've rooted for one player so hard, but AMD was just the player for me. It's watching him learn the game sometimes like during the tournament, and then he would just join something and start complaining about something, and then immediately have that moment of grief overcome, and he's like, oh, what am I doing? It's just, I feel his energy so much when I'm be able to talk with him between games while he's competing. And I cannot remember the last time I was like rooting for a player as hard as I was for AMD. So to see him kind of miss it was just kind of tough for me. But it's just, my gosh, it was like, what a stacked like LCQ this felt like as well. It felt like that the player skill was like, players had strong understanding of what was happening, but the actual demonstration of it was, I think, a big difference. And I think that you can see that just in top 4 and bottom 4 even coming into this one, where it was like the top 4 felt like, just strictly speaking, that they executed their game plans stronger than the bottom 4 did. And the thing from there now, that's where it gets super tight, because we're only seeing 2 players go. So your strategy has to change dramatically going into a tournament like this, where only the top 2 are getting paid, versus where your goal, typically speaking, is to top 4 in your lobby. That's a dramatic change in how you have to play.
It's hype, though. I mean, it makes it so that some players are taking a lot of riskier lines. It is more punishing, though, right? Preston took that 8th place in the first game, and that ultimately decided his last day of competition. dpei, Aesah, did either of you get a chance to watch LCQ by any chance?
I did not watch it.
Okay.
I watched day 1, but I couldn't watch day 2 because that's when I was like moving. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So you moved to Canada, by the way, right? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, temporarily. Yeah, we'll see how long it is.
Oh, okay. All right. Until his laundry's done, at least, and then
at least until the laundry is done. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully everything's going good logistically. So LCQ, I casted it. I agree with Nathan. It felt like it was a really interesting tournament to see, kind of like people who play with desperation on the line, so to speak. Every game is super high stakes because any like 8th place can almost sabotage your entire tournament. And then, watching even like really strong players or people who are on their path to become really strong players, looking at Talai in 5th, Davidas in 6th, Groxy at 7th, Jesus Timo, who we don't know too much about, but these are players who we're seeing more and more in tournaments. For many of these people, it's their first or second set competing. So hopefully these are just the first time we'll see their names, and then eventually you'll be like, wait, I remember seeing them do well. And LCQ is a really good indicator of players who are competitively or who are very competitive and are very serious about the game, as opposed to people who are like, well, I just qualify for this one tournament and then I just happen to go pretty far. It's usually a good indicator of some of the strongest players. All right, with that, let's talk a little bit about some of the other things that's happening. So we have B-Patch did release and has reverted the duelist buffs to things like KO, for example. It nerfed Gnar, and it also reverted the attack speed bug. There's an interaction specifically happening, I believe, at 3.0 attack speed or higher, where it like basically wasn't working. And this ended up being fixed, which coincidentally actually buffed duelists so much that when the patch dropped, duelists were destroying everything, and it kind of baffled a bunch of people. So that was actually something that was interesting that happened. But after they be patched, it is now put the patch into a spot where I think a lot of people really like it. So I kind of want to hear a little bit of reaction. dpei, we'll start with you. How do you feel about the current state of the patch going into regionals right now?
I think this is like the best patch of set 8.5 for sure. For sure 8.5 and maybe set 8 as well. I feel like they got the balancing just right at the end of set 8, but that was like no competitions were happening. So I feel like this is actually like the most skill expressive patch, the one where you can know a lot of outs. You can play anything, I think. Like, yeah, things are like maybe a little undertuned, but in the right spot, there's like a lot of good things. So I think this is like a really, really good patch, a really fun patch. I don't think there's any like solve to the meta. Like the Aesah meta was a bit, like it was a bit solved, I guess, to some extent, and it gets stale. But I'm still like finding in our scrims, like there are some interesting things to do. And like people are improving upon it, which I think is cool too. And there's a bunch of like positioning things that go with that, not just like, oh, this is the comp. It's like, oh, this is how you position the comp versus this comp, and keeping track of all these things. So I think it's a really healthy meta, a really balanced meta, and a meta where you can express a lot of skill. So yeah, it's really cool.
Interesting. I'm really curious to also see. Did you stream your scrim games today?
No.
Okay, no, you're not revealing the tech too much beforehand, right? Is that what's going on?
No, okay. You don't want to see the tech to go 7th.
Are you getting bodied in scrims?
Oh, I think I went 2-2-7-7. So
okay.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, the 7s were my bad, and the 2s were lucky. So that's my.
We have a tradition.
4.5 average.
That's true. We have a tradition here on the Don't Talk If You Don't Know podcast for the fantasy draft. We're gonna do a fantasy draft later tonight, people, for regionals, where we usually want to encourage players to draft themselves, but dpei might be one of those people who doesn't draft themselves. Maybe Aesah as well. We'll see. Aesah, talk to me about the patch. Do you feel pretty good on it? How much practice have you had on it, man? Just be honest with us.
I've played about 10 games.
Okay.
I played 3 ladder games and 6 in-house games, I believe. And,
you played in-houses. Great.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I haven't played a lot. I'm not like super familiar with the patch. From what I've seen in houses, I see a lot of people playing Auxiliaries and Riftwalker, either like mascot variation or like Jin Viego. That's kind of what I've seen the most. And yeah, I want what dpei mentioned about the patch being less solved. I kind of think it's just because people care more because it's regionals. I don't think like any other patch, like the previous patch, for example, like I think if the previous patch was regionals patch, I think like people would care more and develop, like more techs besides just playing kites every game.
Interesting.
Oh, so you're saying that simply because the stakes are higher, people are putting more time and effort into it. They don't just get stuck on one composition that's good and then use it as like a cookie cutter build.
I think a lot of people have like a misconception that like the game is solved, but I think it's very clear that if you look at other strategy games that have been around for like, where like they don't patch for like over a year or even longer than that the metas are constantly changing. And TFT is definitely a complicated enough game where like if we were to play on, for example, last patch for another year, I guarantee you the meta will look completely different.
Wow.
And even what dpei was saying about like positioning wise, right? Like positioning hasn't changed. Like it shouldn't have changed from last patch. It's just a numbers tuning. But
That's
he's saying, like we're figuring out more and more stuff with positioning.
Yeah.
Because the competition level. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that's a pretty hot take, almost to the point where it makes me feel like I want to throw out my previous agrees and put that in there somewhere. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as time goes on. I kind of want to hear Admirable's thoughts about the patch, and then we can move on to the next section here, or the next news piece.
I mean, I'm definitely in the category of, I think this has been the best patch of set 8. And to me, it feels like if the next patch has massive changes to it, that's a bad thing. I feel like this one has a ton to still explore. I think it has a ton of unique spots. I think that everyone thought that Aesah was completely gutted and going to be unplayable, and it's still popping up in some spots where it feels like the spot is right for it. And that to me feels like a very difficult thing to even accomplish with this set because there's so many things that are in it. Like I think hero augments in hindsight were just a bad idea. I think it's too much that's into the game that creates direct like angles that you have to shoot for. You're like, well, I guess I have to take this one and I have to go for it. Or it completely put you in a spot where you have to do something prior to landing on that, so that way you can tailor your augments in a better way. It's like, I don't think that those are necessarily good things with the game, but I still think there's some tiny little things I'd like to see changed, but I don't want to get too far into that. I mean, that's like super nitpicky at that point. I feel like where we're at now is easily the best we've been in set 8. And if this had been from the start, that honestly, I'm kind of curious, like how much development it would have been, or how many changes they would have had to make just simply to push different ideas. Like, you know, would people have gotten bored if this was the first patch of the set? It's very unusual, I think, that you can get this kind of balance when there's so many variables in place. And that to me, just that's a big fist pump. Like if that's what you're hitting, how could you not be happy with it?
Yeah, I agree. I talked about it a little bit on my stream as well. I think that if we started here like 2 weeks after set 8.5, I think people have looked pretty favorably, almost kind of like we had a redemption set similar to 5.5 or even parts of 7.5. After like a kind of a very weak base set in terms of the sentiment, you have an opportunity to recover from it. It feels like now we're getting to that point. I'm having a lot of fun this patch. I actually think it's really good. And I know saying the F word on stream, not cool, but I'm having a lot of fun. I'm just going to say it. I think it's a really good time right now. Go out and play some more. Speaking of fun, we have a fun tournament happening this weekend. I just felt like it was worth highlighting. One of our community members, her name is Palzahar, is putting on a tournament for the women, non-binary, and queer TFT community, aka the LGBTQIA plus community. And it features like Raimplosion, for example, is going to be playing it. Luna, who's actually a former Hearthstone Grandmaster, Hearthstone Pro is actually playing it. Candy, right? People know Candy associated with Kern. So a lot of some like familiar community faces. Definitely go check it out. Just want to highlight that. And the first event is happening tomorrow night, so it'll be a little bit conflicting with regionals, but the following week it's also going to be an event. So I just want to highlight that. And I don't know if there's anything someone wants to speak to specifically, but it's actually a pretty decent field. I do expect Raimplosion to have a lot of pressure on her shoulders, given that she's like a world's finalist, and there's some people here who kind of like, they play TFT, but they're not like hyper competitive pro players. So we'll see. But I think it's a really good initiative, so I just want to applaud that. The other last piece of thing is actually kind of an interesting topic, which is Bebe, a whole resident power leveler Bebe, everyone loves, the super tempo player, has released a twit longer talking about the state of competitive TFT in Korea, and specifically the title of this twit longer is why Korea has failed in competitive TFT. And he goes into a pretty long explanation, but it comes down to 5 points of how individual streamers are struggling right now to maintain viewership. A bunch of other things like whether or not the TFT competitive scene actually can like band behind it. But he ended up going into the final point, which was that Riot in general has given the rights to Africa TV, who is the wrong tournament organizer, and as a result has kind of upended the scene because they are giving spots away to silver players who literally don't actually play the game instead of actually challenger slots. So this would be equivalent to like, let's say TFT for whatever reason move to kick.com, and you'd be like, well, no one streams TFT onto kick.com. That's exactly what's happening in Korea. They're like, well, there's these 2 people who stream TFT. You're in the qualifiers, and then everybody else in the lobby will be filled by bots or normal, random people you queue into normals. It's actually kind of a disaster, according to what's happening by what Bebe said. So I want to just throw it out there, get a little bit of reactions. You guys, Admiral, did you read this tweet longer by Bebe by any chance?
When I clicked on this and I saw why Korea has failed in competitive TFT, I thought this was going to be like a long-winded discussion of like strategy community and why they're not performing as well. To give you just a little bit of a brief, Bebe and I talked at Set 7 Worlds about him starting a competitive Korean team. And long story short, I don't think it's followed through the way that he envisioned it would. So when I clicked on this and saw why Korea's failed in competitive TFT, naturally the first thought in my mind. And as I started reading this, I was like, how on earth is this true? Like, what has happened when the top players in Korea are not getting world spots just simply because of exclusivity to a streaming website? Like, what is happening? Like, if this is all accurate for what he says, this is like, I don't even think disaster would be the right word for it at that point. Like, that's underselling what's happening here. Like, we're talking about a company that's like based its foundation on competition, on hype, and about pushing the best players in the regions that are possible. The moment you stop giving that to the best players in the region in terms of how they finished and how they earned, this is horrible and needs to be addressed if you're going to continue to push your games that way.
Yeah, agreed. For what it's worth, China does end up having problems similar to this, but the way they do is they have like every streaming service compete and they have specific brackets. That's not the point, though. I kind of want to get a little just more reactions here, dpei. I'm not looking for you guys to condemn anything or make a public stance. I just kind of want to hear. I mean, dpei, you come from organized play in an official structured Overwatch League. When you see this happening, what's going through your head?
I haven't read the thing, so I don't know the details. But just speaking really generally, I think like esports struggles to be like profitable and have competitive integrity at the same time. And this sounds like really obviously extremely bad and weighted towards one way. You know, I don't actually know the situation. If it's literally silver players getting in, like, yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
But like, if NA could somehow give like Soju a world spot, isn't that like kind of good? You know, like, but that's not competitively integral, right? Like, so like, I don't actually know what the answer is for this because esports is just like in general like struggling now. I think people bought into it a lot. It's been kind of a bubble for, I don't know, the past 3 years. Like people heavily invested into things like the Overwatch League, things like, you know, LCS and like the franchising model. You know, like people say that, you know, relegation is more competitive, right? But at the same time, franchising has a bunch of positive business benefits that are important for sustaining the game, so long as the league is well conducted, right? So on a more like conceptual thing, I think it's an interesting topic for Korea specifically and TFT specifically. I don't know, but I think it's a shame because Korea has the infrastructure, culturally has the infrastructure, you know, gaming wise, to have great players come from there. In all other esports that Korea like really cares about, they are quite good, you know, elite. I've worked with a lot of Korean players and yeah, they're great. Their country, like their infrastructure around esports is really good. It's just a shame it doesn't seem to be working for TFT if what Bebe is saying is true. So that's really sad. But yeah, I don't really have any specific thoughts because I haven't read it. I'm too lazy to read a twit longer.
No worries.
It needs to be
no
320
worries.
characters or less for me to care.
It's pretty much exactly what we described, and I'm already ready to move on to the next thing. Unless Aesah, you want to drop any comments, but I'm pretty sure we kind of addressed it.
I mean, I pretty much agree. I just think it should be competitive. And you mentioned the Soju like getting a world slot. Like, I don't think that's something he would want. Because I mean, yeah, it should just be competitive. I think like Twitch Rivals or like TFT Summit, like sure you can invite like the streamers, but like when it comes to regionals and worlds, it should not be like, oh, this guy has a lot of viewers on Twitch, give him a spot.
Yep.
Oh, I just meant like hyperbolically. That's one side of the spectrum versus, you know, another one. But yeah, I totally agree, and I doubt he would want that either.
Yep, agreed. All right, so we wish best of luck to Korea and Baby. Hope they figure it out. I did what I could, which is I kind of like passed it along to some people at Riot, and they said they'll definitely take a look at it because obviously they don't want that to happen, especially if they talk about all this great stuff about the future of TFT, and they're inviting 3 viewer streamers who are in silver to compete. That's right, I didn't misspeak. 3 viewers apparently on the silver streamer, but I digress. All right, let's talk a little bit about the ranking, shall we? So this is the power ranking section of the podcast where we discuss who made it to the top 15 and who didn't. And we always start with the snub list of the people who received the votes but did not place. And the field is smaller. It's 24 competitors, so it's actually more about who didn't make it, sort of, in this list. And we had 7 people not make it, which means we had 2 players not get votes entirely. That was JD Zielinski, 22, and Kindle Gem. Neither of them received a single vote. Sad. But hey, maybe an opportunity for them to get motivation. Now we take a look at some of these names. We have Cottontail, Yunwilv, Juki, Garchomp, Aesah, Boss of Skills, and DQA. DQA missing top 15. Let's start off with Aesah. What's a name that sticks out to you that is on this list that perhaps you think maybe should be higher or even just straight up in the top 15?
To me, I haven't been like keeping up with how much they've been playing, but I know like Bossa Skills studies with Malala, and I mean, there's clearly Malala is in top 15, so I'm kind of curious like if he's just not playing as much relatively or something like that, or people don't think he's as good. I don't know what's going on. I've been out of the scene, so yeah.
Okay. DPei, you've been practicing a lot against people like Basso Skills. What's your read on him currently? Because he's part of that group, right? He's part of that like Weijin and Stellar Minhee and Malal, like all those guys kind of stick together. Where's Basso fit in that?
He's very good. I'm pretty sure he's very good. I don't know where I ranked them. I think my ranking list was kind of like a little more lazy. Like I didn't put too much thought into it, you know. Like just put things into rough tiers.
Right.
But I think he's like really good. So I'm surprised he's not on that list. Some of these players like don't play the game as much. Like Tail and Aesah, I haven't seen them, you know. So like I think that kind of makes sense. No blame. Just like, you know, you have to play the patch, you know, like. But I think I actually think Kindle Gem's good. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. In all our analysis, I see this guy and I think he's good. But yeah, I don't actually know. Like, I feel like after like top like 7, it was kind of hard to rank people because, or I don't know the number exactly. It was just kind of hard to rank people because some people don't stream. I don't actually know like how good Garchomp Pro is or how good Jukyu is or Unwilf, you know, like because they don't stream and I don't watch them play. Like I'm not hard tunneled on them when I play or anything. So
okay,
yeah.
Totally fair. Let's actually just start revisiting some of these names then. We'll start from the very bottom. One person voted for Cottontail, and that was Admirable. So Cottontail, you're the only person on the entire panel, Admirable, to put Cottontail on the ballot. Why is that?
So when I make my first ballot, I do it purely off instinct. Purely. And then immediately afterwards, I start going investigating things. The reason I start doing this is because if I start having ties at sections, I use my instinct as the tiebreaker for this. I did not have ties with 2 of the names that I put on here, but I sent Dan my instinct list, not my final list. Now, granted, my instinct list was not that different from my final list. It was literally 2 names. And the 2 names after I went and started investigating, I was like, oh my gosh, Ripple Overdrive and Kyvix. I'm an idiot. So I immediately put them in there. And then I just didn't send Dan that updated list. My updated list actually cut Cottontail and Basso Skills, and it moved down Milala and Replay and Jukyu and DPei and Clear.
And DPei.
Yeah, so those are all bumped down by like 1 spot because I was like, oh my god, Kyvix and Ripple Overdrive. Ripple Overdrive, I feel like has just been like a madhouse player. When you go and look at any stream that he's in, when you go and look over pretty much any detail involving his gameplay, and then you look at his season, it's just I'm like he just keeps getting better. Every single time you see his name somewhere, he keeps getting better and better. Like I was one of those people who was like, Ripple Overdrive 15. Maybe I think this one's better. You know, I was putting him like maybe 13 through 15th, it felt like. And I feel like coming into this patch in particular, it's just in great form. He's been playing the game a ton. He's been practicing a ton. And I feel like he's got a good grasp on it as well. And so that was how Cottontail actually made it into my list was I just forgot to send Dan my updated list on this one. So I feel pretty embarrassed about that. I saw it the moment it was there and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to try to change this. I'm just going to explain it on the show and accept my embarrassment.
And how good of a cache is this guy? I asked him a question, why'd you put Cottontail? And he talks about an entire topic for 3 minutes. He's like, yeah, well, I put Cottontail on my ballot, but here's everything I think about Ripple Overdrive instead. My God, you should run for office. All right, well, there you go. It was a mistake. It's okay. It happens, man. But, you know, it's actually really funny. Going back to the person above that, Yunwolf, DPei, you said you don't know much about him, yet you ranked him. So then why did he catch your eye? Is it because of the LCQ performance?
Sometimes I just see people play a lot, and I respect people who grind ladder a lot.
Okay.
So I didn't know who to put, and then I was like, who have I seen play ladder the most in the past 2 weeks? Who's in my games the most? Oh, Unwolf. I'm down, you know? Like,
okay, all right.
They've got to be running something in Disneyland, you know? Like, you can learn something.
And he is also an independent player, right? He's kind of one of the. I'm gonna throw out a really old name here, but he reminds me of a player named M35S or Marcus. He's a player that competed a lot in set 3 and was kind of like a faceless unknown grinder and did pretty well. And Yunwolf, this is his first set competing, so this is like a really good opportunity for him to get good experience under his belt. I really root for him. 2 other players that voted for him, AMD and Showtime. Let's talk about Jukyu. Admirable, you voted for Jukyu. Now, do you still stand by that? Because you're not alone in this case. AMD and Nature's also got him as well.
Yeah. I had Jukyu on my final list, making it at number 15. It was just really tough for me to choose a number 15, to be honest with you. And again, this is kind of where when I start looking at things, the instinct list comes as my tiebreaker. He won the tiebreaker on this one. It was very close on number 15 to me. And I was just like, yeah, he's just got to be in here in my head. I think that it's one of those players that stands out to me. It's really tough to say. I wanted to put Jukyu, frankly, on a lot of the tournaments that I've seen him in a spot in. It just barely wasn't quite there. But when you keep improving over time, it's going to be hard for me to not pay attention to that.
I'm just going to put out one thing here. I'm just going to throw out one thing here. Jukyu lives in a parallel universe, or rather he thinks about a parallel universe where he didn't have to Windows update on a cruise and he could actually play. Malala didn't get to go to the final day and make that deep run and qualify regionals, and this guy would be the talk of the town and be one of the breakout players alongside Wage and Iverson. There's a parallel universe that exists out there. DP, you're laughing. What's up, man?
Oh no, I think that's a hilarious story. He had to dip, and then Malala takes his spot and actually makes the most of it. That I forgot that happened. That was actually fucking great for Malala.
This whole set, there's like a weird wait list buff where if you're the person that gets in, you do really well. So Jukyu had to dip because he was on a cruise with his girlfriend, which is honestly a great excuse. Hey guys, I can't play in your for fun $100 TFT tournament prize pool because I'm too busy partying on a cruise with my girlfriend. And by the way, I would have made it to the final day anyways if I didn't have bad internet. That's an excuse I'm willing to accept. So he did that. You saw a good run by people like Joe Bookmark, who got in right. He got another shot in at Mecha Cup. So really cool, fun storylines of people who came from behind and made deep runs all throughout set A. Garchomp, we talked a little bit about it. The one thing I will say about Garchomp, I'll take this one here, is that Garchomp's been putting a lot of content on YouTube. It seems like Garchomp's really kind of put himself out there as like a expert for like tier lists and a person that studies a lot of lines. So if you're interested in seeing more like, here's my comp sheet, here's my comp list, here's like how you position, definitely check out some of Garchomp's content over on YouTube. He got 2 votes primarily from Amdy and Darth Noob, which by the way, Amdy, just a spoiler, one of our most unique ballots because he put Kyvix in second, which actually makes sense as his best friend, and like a bunch of these random votes. Let's talk about Aesah. Aesah, 22 points. Aesah, the people that voted for you, man, they really believe in you. You got Robin, Setsuko, Gangly, Clear, and yourself, and you scored minimum 4 points on each of those ballots. So people who believed in you really do, man. What do you have to say in response to that?
I think it's just like a difference in what you I guess value like going into, because like I guess I'm more polarizing because clearly I'm like the least practiced. Like I said, I've only played 10 games on this patch. That's probably the least out of anyone, but I also played TFT full time for like 2 years before that. So it just depends like what, like, do you think those skills of like playing set 6 and set 7 very well translate more, or like do you think knowing the meta of this patch is more important, basically? Interesting.
And so do you feel, just as a general question here, do you feel like you should be in the top 15, or this is kind of exactly where you should be?
I mean it's close enough. Like so this would be, I would be like 18. I rank myself somewhere close-ish to that. That seems fine to me.
Okay. Fair enough. Very, very humble as usual. We talked a little about Boss of Skills. DQA actually had a record, which is the most voted for person to not make the top 15. He had so many people vote for him, but he didn't make it because a lot of them put him for like 1 point. A lot of people put like, well, I don't really, some of the people, when I was asking them, they're like, well, I didn't really know. And DQA is always like a wild card. So I'll throw him in like slot number 14 or 15, but that unfortunately wasn't enough to add up to get into a top 15. Does anybody here have a read on how young Daniel is doing? How is DQA? Is he in form? Is he just too busy crushing it at school? Is he not playing at all?
I think DQA is just like similar to me, where it's like he's not playing as much, but like he like has. I think he's just like good at TFT. Yeah. Even if he like doesn't have as good of a meta read as some of these guys who are prepping. Like some of the other people on the Snubbed List are probably like prepping for this patch more, but DQA has been playing TFT more like in the past like 2 years.
Interesting. Socks is in chat saying, I was watching him. He's really good. However, as we've established previously, this mismatched Sauce guy might be one of the least reliable narrators to ever grace this show. That being said, come back anytime, man. I love having you on.
Goodness. I put DQA really high on my list. DQA has constantly been like, I'll stick him at 15. DQA is to me as gangly. DQ is to me as Solus is to gangly. It's just I was always putting him at 15th, regardless of how little he had practiced at something, because he's just never done bad. Like even when he's had poor finishes, he didn't play badly in those. A lot of times you just go watch and it's just honestly, he just kind of got unlucky the entire time. That's going to happen in tournaments, albeit I think for strong players, it's pretty rare. DQA, it just always feels like no matter what, he's getting better. It's like Ace said, he's just good at TFT. Like I can't not put this guy on a list when we're talking about being one of the stronger tournament competitors. It'll be 52 years from now, I'm going to still be putting DQA on a list, regardless of how much he's played. He's just good at TFT, and I don't think it's ever going away.
You put him at 7th, the highest person, and then Robin put him 10th, and then from there a bunch of 1 and 2 pointers. So that is our snub list. Really interesting stuff overall, and I'm laughing in chat because there's some disagreements between some of our panelists. Showtime got timed out by Stellar Minhee because he is flaming DQA. Showtime, who has joined the panel for one episode of Regionals, he says, I think DQ is in pretty bad form. Like, I've never seen him this bad. Like, I still think he's good. I think he's 16th to 20, which is exactly where he landed. And Showtime is welcome to his own opinion, but you're also welcome to spend 10,000 channel points to time him out. Let's look at the actual power rankings itself. So let's walk it very quickly through. Wait, this is the old rankings. Hold on, give me 1 second. I got baited because it had Dish Soap at number 1. 1 second, here we go. This is the correct rankings. Dish Soap at number 1, Satsuko at number 2, Weijin at number 3, the highest Weijin has been. Robin Song's number 4, Kurum at 5. Then from there we have a gap. Ripple Overdrive in 6 and Replay in 7. These are clearly the highest they've ever been. Clear also getting himself to 8th. And then Kyvix at 9. Spetham, first time on the list, making top 10. dpei at 11. Sox at 12. Malala at 13. Robavance first time on the list at 14. And Broccoli in 15. Let's walk it through from top to bottom and talk about all the storylines. Starting from Dish Soap versus Setsuko, Setsuko versus Dish Soap. That's been the storyline. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, whatever you want to call as this rivalry. However, it seems to be favoring Dish Soap pretty significantly. In the previous battles, it'd always be a lot tighter and closer, but it feels like people are just saying Dish Soap is number 1. Aesah, do you agree with that concept?
Personally, I rate Setsuko higher, but I'm also like a little out of touch. I do think. I don't know. I think Setsuko kind of like has found the right mental for tournaments that he was lacking before. Now, like he plays his tournament games like he plays his ladder games, just like talking to his stream and like playing funny music. And I think that's the kind of mood like you need to be in. And I think Dish Soap, I think like he puts like a lot of pressure on himself, and I think that I think he hasn't quite found. Yeah, basically what I said for Setsuko. Like, I think like he can't play his tournament games like his ladder games. I think he hasn't fully been able to like overcome the pressure he puts on himself.
3 people did not put Dish Soap number 1 on their ballot. Only 3. Everyone else put Dish Soap number 1, so it almost felt like he was unanimous. One of them was Aesah, as he just mentioned. Another one was dpei. And the third person was Clear, because Clear put himself rank 1, but more on that later. dpei.
He's been playing in the stats, man. He knows how to do it. Clear's a beast.
It might be one of the last times we ask Clear to be a ballot member if he's just going to put himself in rank 1 like this to give himself some extra points. But dpei, talk to me a little bit. Why also did you not put Dish Soap number 1?
Oh, upon reevaluation, I'm pretty sure Dish Soap should always be number 1. But I kind of agree with Aesah. The one thing, like, I have Ripple Overdrive as number 1. I think he's really cool, calm, and collected during tournament, and he has less pressure. I feel like Dish Soap does have this pressure actually that Aesah is talking about, either externally or internally. And I see that get to him sometimes. You know, I've coached for like 6 years. I can kind of tell, but I think Dish Soap is like a great player, like a really great player. And I think he reminds me like of a lot of great players I've worked with in a lot of ways. So I think he is number 1 for sure. There's no reason not to place him number 1. I just have a feeling like Ripple will do really, really well in this tournament. I've been studying with him a lot, but aside from that, I've always rated him like within the top 5, I think. So, and I feel like this is like a really great patch for him. It's a study patch. It's a flexible patch. And I don't think that Dish Soap should really be number 2 on my list upon reevaluation, but I feel really good about Ripple. It's like a close 1, 2, 3, 4 in my mind, for sure. But I respect Dish Soap a lot. I think he's a really good player, and I think like while he does have that pressure on himself, like he will overcome that at some point, and maybe this is the tournament too. He will overcome that, whatever it is, that tournament pressure.
What is it about Ripple Overdrive where we talk about a topic and somehow these guys on my show just keep saying, you know what is great? Ripple Overdrive. It happened to Admirable. It happened to dpei. I'm expecting it to happen to Aesah as well. And I might as well join it. You know what? Let's talk about Ripple. He's number 6. Admirable and dpei clearly has said their piece. Aesah, is there anything about this guy? Actually, I think, Aesah, you were one of the only people to not rank Ripple Overdrive, but oh, actually, no, you did. It was replay that you did not. But you ranked him a little bit lower. Is that just because you're a little bit unfamiliar, not tracking the players?
Yeah, I don't have... I don't really know that much about Ripple Overdrive. Like, obviously, I know he did well in Mecha Cup, where like I competed against him in Final Lobby. And he's always been like pretty high rank on ladder, like high, like 1400 LP. But I mean, I think what dpei was saying earlier, like he hasn't been a nave that like I've been like focusing on, like paying attention to. Like he as far as I know, like doesn't stream regularly, so I just don't have a lot to say about him.
He's a very consistent player. We had him on the previous episode of the podcast with Spetham. It was a great episode in Ripple, very thoughtful player. And I think his key is that he tries to just avoid making mistakes. It's like he focuses more on the consistency aspect of it. Doesn't really go 8, doesn't really tries to play very solid and doesn't open himself up to the possibility of going 8th, which I thought was a really interesting strength that he was trying to mention. So Ripple there in 6th place. By the way, Yenwei was running a poll in the chat during this conversation asking who chat thinks should be rank 1 between Dish Soap and Setsuko, and Dish Soap won by 1 vote, 52%. So close. It just goes to show you how difficult it is to rank some of these guys. Let's move down the list here, and then we'll skip over Ripple. There's a tier of players, which is Weijin, Robin, and Kurum. They're all kind of around this band of like players that people are respecting a lot. Out of all of these 3, who do you personally respect or fear the most if you're in the player's seat? We'll start with you, Admirable.
Weijin, easily. I think that Kurum and Robin are here because they're consistent. It's not really scary anymore. You see them all the time. Weijin Iverson, it's like, what happened? It came out of nowhere where suddenly this guy's one of the best players in the set. It feels like it doesn't happen that quickly usually. It feels like somebody makes their way there, but he came out of nowhere. So there's no telling what Weijin's cap is going to be because he hasn't been playing the game that long. So where's the ceiling on that is what I'm wondering about that. If I'm in a lobby with Weijin Iverson, I'm much more worried than I'm in with one with Curran or Robin, who just play strong tempo econ games. They know how to manage their resources really well, and they don't play them poorly. With Weijin Iverson, it feels like that he is taking strange risks at times, but then a few rounds later you go, oh, okay, I see it. That makes sense. And he just plays the game very cleanly. And it feels like when I've seen him, I've been watching him a ton on stream. He said, he addressed this earlier today as well. He said that he gets like almost tilted when he's not playing on stream, but for some reason when he's playing on stream, he's just a lot calmer.
Oh, like, interesting. That's a weird tournament buff.
I was like, that seems kind of weird. But well, mind you, he's playing tournament without a camera, without a microphone on. So I don't know. Maybe he's just going to get giga tilted there, or maybe he's just completely lying and he's trying to throw everyone off base. But there's no telling how much better you get when you're this good in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and I believe talent reveals itself pretty early. Someone in chat mentioned Dish Soap, kind of same thing. I feel like he kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, in some ways, dpei has been around, but he's trying and he's showing off what he's got. Same thing with Aesah. It's actually really funny that we have assembled this kind of crew. dpei, same question to you, by the way. Weijin, Robin, and Kurum. I mean, you could go with the rankings, but do you also agree Weijin is the scariest player out of this tier of 3 that we have?
Yeah, I can't explain why. I guess I can try, but the way he problem solves is so fast and it's so on the fly. And he's solving like very like specific problems in the game. I feel like this could be a problem because whenever I watch Robin or Karam stream, they're obviously like streaming and they're great streamers and they interact with chat very well, but that means you're not like as focused on the game. So this could be a bias towards that, but I really do feel like Wei Jin, like he thinks about the right thing very, very quickly, like very alarmingly quickly. And there's like just a talent for that, for sure. And so maybe I also like, I don't think it's a big deal, but I do think age is actually kind of important. He's like quite young. He has like no responsibilities in life as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
like,
I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
It's easier to be a player at this point in your life. He's a college student. Presumably his parents are, he or, like you get a lot taken care of for you as a college student. You have free housing or whatever it is, or you have things available to you. Your life is not that hard, basically. There's not a lot of worries you have to do. And I feel like that's a huge, huge advantage. I have this theory on all esports, and it's why I think people also fall off. But there is like levels of professionalism. But I do think per time, like people can be really scary on patches, for sure. They can be very scary on specific patches because they get a lot of this intense knowledge because they're willing to grind the game and they don't get tired and their back doesn't hurt sitting in a shitty chair like me where I have to stretch. I literally go outside and stretch. I have to see the sun. These kids don't have to see the sun. Like I don't know what it is. When I was 19, 20, 21, I didn't have to go see the sun. I needed to eat very little to sustain myself. Like I was just a fucking degenerate. But kids like Wei Jin, these guys are just absolute degenerates, and they can play the game and they can think fast. And I need to be well rested. Like I haven't slept well. I'm sick because I'm old, and I don't know, some dust got into my bedroom, and it's just over, But
dpei,
kids like Wei Jin, he's on the grind. He's on a mission. He's scary. Yeah.
My goodness gracious! I didn't need to cut you off there. dpei, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 29, but I feel like 50.
Shut up, man. Just
Get out of here.
You're the only person that's not in their 30s on this podcast.
Yeah, no, but my back is at least 70 years old, and I see kids on a lawn, and I'm like, what are these hooligans up to?
I thought you were about to drop like 35 or something like that, which would have made more sense, but still also like a little borderline. Aesah. What is dpei making sense to you, or is it all too true?
I think it makes sense. Honestly, I feel like I already touched upon this when I mentioned myself and DQA earlier when I was talking about this. It just depends whether you value. Like for me, I think Robin and Karam are scarier because they have consistently like done well, and then they're just gonna keep on doing better because they're still investing a lot of their time in TFT and they're getting better and better. So to me, that's a lot scarier. Part of what I said about Dish Soap, I would think about Wei Jin too. Like Wei Jin competed. I think he got third at LCQ in set 7.
Yep.
So I mean, he was definitely like competing. But this is the first time like there's been so much pressure on him where like there's like a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And so I just know like historically, I don't know how Wei Jin personally will handle the pressure. Like it might not affect him at all. That's possible. But just like historically, most people do not do that well in that situation. So yeah, that's why personally I'd be more scared of Robin and Karam.
I like that. I like that.
And it's kind of like me. Like I am similar to Robin and Karam, and like dpei is more similar to Wei Jin, where he's like a rising star, and I'm like veteran.
I like it. And you mentioned age, dpei, and Robin songs in it. Contrast the young with the old. I like it. Going back to what Aesah said as well, that's a really fascinating thing is that now Wei Jin's not the underdog anymore. He's actually expected to do well. If he doesn't make final lobby, that's a disappointment to him. That being said, he has qualified for the world championship. So maybe that expectation is misplaced because this could be like his practice to like stay in form and also claim that extra prize money. There's $35,000 on the line. So it's actually a lot of money to still play for. So maybe that ends up helping Wei Jin, but we'll see. Maybe that ends up becoming very true at the World Championship. We'll end up having to see. I personally pick Robin songs to be the most scary player here because when Robin's in my lobby, I just think, okay, well, that's one spot out of top 4 I can't get. Wei Jin actually has one of the highest 1st or 8th percentages. The reason why Wei Jin's so scary is because he knows how to win, but Wei Jin also takes actually a pretty decent amount of 8th places, and that could be something that ultimately sabotages him if he's not able to rein a little bit in, or at least if things get out of control, because we all know TFT can get a little bit out of control. With that being said, we also had a poll that was ran. Thank you as well. And it looks like people were overwhelmingly saying that Weijin is to be feared. And I think Kurum is in pretty solid form. So we'll see. Let's talk about some of the other record setters, right? Replay at 7th. Who knows the most about this guy? I think dpei would, because you've been scrimming against him a lot. Why is everyone so hyped? Why is Gangly abandoning his old faithful Solus and talking about his new hot fling, his hot spring fling in replay?
Oh, I'm pretty sure people are like not looking at the tournament results. Haven't like replay and Ripple like been in final lobby or close to final lobby like every single tournament of set 8 and 8.5? I'm pretty sure like they have really, really good stats and really good tournament performances, like by far, and really consistent just for this set. So I rated him highly before I'm like studying with him and Ripple a lot. So there's like no bias because I think I made this list before I even started studying with him, at least extensively. I think he's really smart about the game. I think like for me, it's more about the tournament results and his consistency in set 8 and 8.5 that has impressed me. So there's got to be something there with replay and Ripple, and I feel like they're not as outspoken as other people, but they have had like really, really good performances throughout set 8 and really consistent performances. So that's why I rate them so highly, I guess, is just because they've really been doing quite well.
Yeah, and his performance in scrims are also pretty strong as well from what I have seen. So don't sleep on this guy. On the other hand, a player that is actually literally in the middle, it's clear, right? He has 7 people above him, 7 people below him. This guy ranked himself rank 1. But at the same time, you gotta admire that confidence, 1, and 2, you kind of look at it, it's like, yeah, I could actually totally see Clear making the top 8 final lobby. The way I define like ranks 1 to 8 is like these are the 8 players that you will most likely see in the final lobby of regionals, and I think he is also in that bucket of players that can definitely do that. dpei, you're nodding your head. You agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, it's because like the rest of us look kind of sus. I think it's like 7, and then like any one of us could be 8 after this. You know, that's why I said like after 7, like I'm less confident, to be honest. You know, about everyone else's. But Clear has the tournament results to back it up. I think in this set. Yeah, but I could like see Spetham there. He literally just won the last Mecha Cup, right?
Yep.
You know, Malala has been doing really well over time. I think Roby is really good. Broccoli's really good. Like, you know, I could see any of these guys really taking the like 8th spot there. But yeah, I mean, might as well be Clear. Why not? He ranked himself 1, inflated the stats over Kyvix, so
it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered, but yes, because Clear actually has not a lot of people above or below him in terms of points when you actually factor in Aesah. I played in a tournament and I made it to the final lobby. I got outplaced by Clear. I posted that I did well in this tournament. You replied saying you got outplaced by Clear. You got something against this guy, man?
I mean, isn't that a little embarrassing?
What? This guy's at regional. He's a regionals caliber player, and it's expected that he outplaces me. You think, isn't it embarrassing the other way around if I outplace him?
I mean, if I got outplaced by Clear, I'd be embarrassed.
Oh my god! Someone clip it and see what happens this weekend. All right, we're moving on.
Dan, this is speaking highly to you, by the way, not down to Clear. It's speaking highly to you.
All right, fair enough. Speaking highly of, I feel like Kyvix here at 9 is really underrated, but that's actually where he's been most of the set, by the way. He's actually been a player that's been like narrowly missing out. He's been like, you know, at 9 to like 11 range in terms of not just the rankings, but also his results, right? He missed out on some tiebreakers or some final lobby stuff. But he's still a really big threat, Adam Bull. I think people are still sleepy on this guy a lot.
Yeah, it's like I said, he's not, I think, high on people's radar, mostly because you don't get to see him play that much. If you're not in lobbies with him, you don't really see him. And I think that's really the thing that's kind of clouding the image of it, is we have so many strong players who are constantly available to watch that you forget about players who don't stream a ton and they're constantly in these lobbies. Like if you look at Kyvix's performance throughout the set, his average performance is 3.83 And frankly, you keep going back every single tournament series that you can look at. Kyvix has consistently done well in these. It's just he does not play bad, and he plays in a very unique way as well. So it's really difficult to get a grasp on what his style is going to look like sometimes. I think for this one, him being right here is a little bit underrated, but frankly, I think it's tough to put him above this unless you're in a direct connection with what Kyvix is playing and how Kyvix is playing. It's just hard to know outside of that. And I feel like that putting him above a position like this very harshly is kind of just guessing at that point. It's, you know, I don't play with Kyvix. I don't really get to see Kyvix all the time. So it's tough for me to even consider placing him above a spot like this.
Kyvix has, I think, the biggest spread where he is ranked as high as 2nd by AMD and as low as 15th by dpei. dpei, you don't really believe in Kyvix that much, or it just felt like you weren't really sure, and like you said, there was like a random order after 7.
It's kind of a random order. I just know this guy has performed in tournaments before, and people who I respect him. So it's like I haven't really seen him play that much ranked at all, you know. So like I'm not in a lot of his lobbies, but I am told that he was like quite good in set 7 and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm not really sure, but his tournament results are good. I think him and Spetham are actually like similar players in a lot of ways, right? They go off meta
interesting
a lot of times. So I kind of think it's appropriate that they're placed next to each other in a way, because they mirror each other. I feel like they always do well. They always find a way to go top 4. It'll be with things that you don't expect, you know, and they'll play something really cool, which is always fun. Yeah.
Interesting. We're polling to see if people want to pick a rank 8 player. It looks like Spetham and Kyvix. At least chat can agree it's not clear in 8th place. As it's a current runoff between Spetham and Kyvix. We'll see, man. This clear guy is so hard to predict whether or not he has a good beat on the meta or whether or not he's even getting any sleep. Because I know one thing that sabotaged clear in the past is sometimes he doesn't sleep going into tournaments. dpei, you're on the outside looking in at 11th. Do you think that's fair and accurate representation? After you had a pretty good set. I feel like 11th might be even a little bit low. Do you agree with that?
I don't think so. I think I don't know how to play in tournament, and I only know how to play on ladder. And I'm like just learning now how to play in tournaments correctly, because I really value ladder like a lot. I value like hard work, and like there's no such thing as in-houses up until like regionals basically. So I've been trying to grind and get in as many of those as possible and like review. But the only way I know how to learn is through ladder, and with that you can pick up a lot of bad habits.
Okay.
I think I'm kicking those out, but I do think that's like a good reason like why people like Aesah or DQA, who aren't like grinding the set as much but just are good players and clearly like tournament successful players, would have an edge over me. So I don't really know how I feel about my placement, but I think around here makes sense. But I have been working I think pretty hard this set, so hopefully I can jump to the next tier, or if you know my prep this week has been good.
What's an example of one thing that you think is a bad ladder habit that you've been trying to kick?
I think just like tournament planning is really important, and I also think I just don't roll, and I don't know when to roll sometimes in tournaments. I think people are like, oh, the tempo is so high, you need to roll on 3-2. I'm never rolling on 3-2, man. I'm like literally never going to roll on 3-2 ever. I've done it in these in-houses. I'm never doing it unless it actually makes sense. Because I just go, I just have 7 pairs. I somehow have like 4 pairs, and they're all really important, and I'm like digging below 10, which always feels bad, and it's just doomed. I would rather go 7 and play like Aesah than try to fucking find Sona and LeBlanc too, even though they're paired. Like it doesn't make sense to me, but I cannot roll on 3-2, and like I have to like learn that lesson, unlearn it, and then learn it again, like when I'm actually supposed to roll, because it's something you would never do on ladder because you never need to, because people are running terrible boards, so you can get by on stage 3. But then you have to relearn that, oh wait, I actually need to do it, but oh wait, I only need to do it very specific times, like 10% of my games do I actually need to roll hard on 3-2.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then also I'm never going 9. There's no such thing as a win out. You're always playing for second. Like it's fine. Just you're saying 8. There's no miracle Setsuko just hit double ergot and fiddle in one shop and then we're going fast 9. There's none of this. There's no fast 9. I watch way too much Soju. I watch way too much Setsuko. That was my bad, and I am just unlearning that lesson again. Even though that would win me rank games, that is just not how it works in tournaments. A double Urgot Fiddle 1 does not just get you to pass 9. It just doesn't. Like Ace is over here with TF2 and I'm over here with 2 Urgot 1s. That's just not how it works, you know?
All right, well there you go. So just to recap, thank you for that in-depth answer, dpei. So dpei was trying to kick his no rolling habits as well as trying to fast 9 a little bit too often. Aesah, let's talk about Socks here in 12th. This is the lowest he's ever been ranked in a non-final set rankings, meaning that the only time Socks has been ranked this low was at an end of set performance, which is kind of a different rankings altogether. It's almost like how well they did this set. So this might be like the lowest people believe in Socks in quite some time. Do you think that's justified?
Yeah, a little bit. I think Socks doesn't really believe in himself right now. I think, you know, like a lot of players will say like, depending on the personality, they might like overhype or underhype themselves. I think Socks like legitimately like does not believe in himself right now, but I mean, kind of like I said about some of these other players like myself, I think Socks is just such a veteran at TFT, and I also think he is like one of the best, just like straight up, even if he's not as familiar with the current meta, and he's been playing some. So
okay, do you think that this is a fair ranking then for him? Then it sounds like you're thinking that this is right where he should be.
I mean, I think I personally ranked him like top 5 or something. So personally, like I said, I rank him like top 5, but yeah.
That looks correct. No, Aesah, you put him. Oh no, you put him 4th. So you rated him very highly. So basically, you did the whole classic top 3 as everyone else did. And you put Socks right behind him. So, and it's okay because it probably makes sense since he's teaching you everything he knows about TFT right now in all those calls.
Yeah, I'm prepping with Socks. So I mean, we're playing more Omega Strikers than TFT, but we are playing some TFT.
Great. Well, if we need OS tips, I know who to go to. It'll be to Aesah and Socks. Let's talk about the last final 3 here: Malala, Robovan, and Broccoli. Admiral, who excites you the most of the top 3 in terms of like the players that can make the biggest run?
I think that this entire set I've put Malala in my ballot as well. And Malala is a player that to me, again, feels like they continue to improve. I feel like that every single time I've watched Malala's point of view, he's done extremely well. I feel like every time I've had an opportunity to see them in a tournament, there's been very few spots where I feel like that they're just genuinely in trouble. And I think that's a difficult thing to avoid a lot of times, especially if you have like a 1st or 8th kind of play style. But I think that a big part of it in tournaments is just going to be figuring out how to avoid atrocious finishes. You know, I think that's something that really I didn't even understand until set 7, was that in tournament play that not having 8s and not having 7s is a really big part of doing well in tournaments, especially in the early stages. You're not always going to have these spots where you have to go first, you have to make yourself top 2. You get into those spots where that happens. And so for the early stages of our tournaments, for regionals in particular, we're looking at cutting off 8 players, then cutting off 8 more players. So we're cutting off a third of the field, and then we're cutting off half the field. I think on day 1, if you can avoid bad finishes, that's going to be a big key. And that kind of ties me into my next point with Broccoli being there as well, which Broccoli is a player that I did not want to rank on this one, but I think that Broccoli is a player that's going to do a lot better when they have practice in a patch. And I feel like that I haven't seen a ton of Broccoli practice. And so that really is what ended up changing that for me, was that I was like, I just don't know if Broccoli's really had the time to play for this one. You know, we saw this with Mecha Cup, where Broccoli just simply did not have a ton of time to practice on it. It was not a good finish. And so that's really something that kind of sparks me as like interesting that Broccoli's there, but I know why people put Broccoli there. It's because Broccoli's good. But for me, if Broccoli doesn't have practice on a patch, it's going to look a lot dicier to me, because I feel like he's somebody who's very good at assessing problems once he knows what they are. But he's got to know what the problems are first. And maybe Broccoli, he doesn't know what those are right now. So for me, it's a little bit surprising, I think, for me to see Broccoli on the list. But for Malala, I think it would be surprising for me to not see them there, especially when we're coming into a 24-player field.
Man, you say that as if you gave Malala a ton of points, but you only gave him 4. Meanwhile, dpei was Malala's biggest believer. dpei gave 8 points to Malala. So let's talk about let's talk to the big Malala benefactor here, dpei. Why is Malala so high on your ballot?
Oh, hasn't he also done like really well in tournaments this set? I guess he like got bailed out by Jukyu. So maybe that was his best tournament performance.
Yes, it was.
But every time I see this guy, he's always doing well in these tournaments. So yeah, I think he does well. I've talked to him as well. Like we sometimes like trade little advices here and there, and he seems to like follow the game, like the Chinese meta, quite a lot, which I think gives him like an interesting edge. It's just like a different edge over other people. So I just feel like he's had good tournament performance, and definitely is like kind of in that tier. Like I was saying, like everyone else, like why not him at that spot as well? Like he's really good, so I could see him going to final lobby for sure.
Understood. Okay, so I want to talk about Robovan Kenobi, and I feel like I'm the only person that would rate him like pretty highly. And I think it's because he is a person that if you like Kyvix and Spetham in terms of like the way they approach things, Robovan's willing to do some really unusual things. Like for example, he's willing to reroll everything in Gadgettine. Like he's willing to reroll Poppy 3, Lulu 3, Annie 3, and then just like eventually figure it out and like do something kind of weird like that. There's no hero augment, right? Like it's just like he's just willing to do that. He's he knows a lot of random lines. He also isn't a player that you can't really know what he's going to play based off his match history profile. He also has really good tournament performances, except for set 7. So he's a really interesting tournament only player for the most part, and I think that should really be intriguing for a lot of people in particular. Not to mention that he comes off of LCQ, which is hyper competitive, means he knows how to play for like really strong performances when he needs to. It's not like he's like, oh, I'm gonna like top 4. It's not like Spicy Appies, right? Appies' biggest weakness is that he plays for 4th almost every game he ever queues into TFT. He's always like, well, what can I like do weird and land 3rd or 4th place? Robovan knows how to actually play for 1st and 2nd in a lot of situations, and his LCQ games perform that. So we'll see. We'll see how Robovan does. I do think that he has some pretty significant weaknesses to his play. The first is that he doesn't really move. He doesn't position and focus on the micro and the scouting aspect of it. But I'm open to seeing him. I'm hoping to see him really bring it this regionals, because I think he has really interesting macro in TFT that I think is underexplored. Aesah, real quick, we heard a little bit of people talk about Broccoli. You were one of the highest people that rated Broccoli, and I know again you talked about like how you haven't been watching, but what specifically do you value highly in a player like Broccoli, giving him so many points?
Broccoli's just done well every set. Like I haven't been really keeping up on this patch, but I think he's just like overall a very good player. Like I feel like he doesn't have any like clear weaknesses in his game. Mm-hmm. He's also pretty good at Omega Strikers as well.
All right, there it is. It's like he's got to make sure that whoever he's queuing up with, he's gassing up. By the way, speaking of gas up, if you think that I'm the only person blowing up smoke towards Robovan's way, that's not true. Setsuko ranked him 5th, very high up the power rankings. But that's it for our top 15. We've covered every player that we possibly could have, with the exception of Kindle Gem and JD Zielinski. But I hope that these guys can pop off and really prove them wrong. Let's move into Agree very quickly and then get to the fantasy draft to wrap up this show. So Agree is pretty straightforward. We put on a warm, hot, lukewarm take, somewhere in between, maybe a cold take, and we ask the panel if they agree. So let's start off with a pretty generic one that I've been seeing tossed around, which is this weekend will be the most competitive and difficult North American regionals yet. So let's start off with dpei.
I think competition. Agree. Sorry, I think the competition level is like really insane this set. Personally, yeah. Oh, it's the first one I've competed in, so it's obviously the most competitive for me as well. So I have no frame of reference, but I feel like the competition is really strong. Like when I look at streams of these random of these players like throughout the list, I think all of them are really, really good. And I think just TFT, like everyone is getting better at TFT. Everyone's getting better at the small things, the little things that really make a diff. So I think this is the most competitive set thus far. Yeah. And this will be the most competitive tournament for North America for sure.
All right. So it's an agree from dpei. Aesah?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends how you define it, but generally I would agree. I think pretty much for every game, until it gets to the phase where like the game is dying, like as long as that game is growing, I think people will always be getting better and better. Like if you took the players right now in this tournament and have them play against like the players from set 7 regionals at like not like me from set 7. Like the players are a lot better now. I think like in set 9 the players will be a lot. It's just people always get better because you build upon what you already know and you get improve upon it as well. So I agree.
I like that. Admirable.
I feel like Aesah read my mind. That's been my experience with pretty much every single game I have ever played. Almost every game I've played that has a competitive scene, I've tried to participate in some way. And like you said, until the game dies, it's just going to keep getting harder. Players get more knowledgeable. The skill edge becomes a different thing almost every step of the way. I feel like Poker Baby is the only game I've ever played where it's felt the same to me. You need to learn different skill sets, but yeah, it's just really not much different, honestly. Like, you know, there's bad players because they just like to play the game. I don't see TFT slowing down anytime soon. And I feel like just when you look at the debates between players and you look at some of these wacky rankings that we have for the ballots here, it tells you a lot about how people view the players there. It's just getting tougher and it's just getting tougher. It's not going to slow down.
All right. I'm going to agree as well. I think that if you put the field of players that we have now against like, you know what's so funny? Milk was in chat earlier and a bunch of other really good players are in chat, but they're not part of regionals now. They're going to be like, man, set 5 regionals was the hardest. But dude, like we were so much worse at the game than we are right now. And there's more people studying and more informed than ever before. So that's an easy agree for me. I think it's going to be really competitive, difficult. And that's why I think a lot of people are really hyped because now there's real talent, right? There's a lot of like talent where you're not entirely sure who is going to be able to win it. And I think that makes it really, really interesting. All right. Looks like chat generally agrees. 60-40 split right now. And that's enough for us to move on. Speaking of like blank things ever for regionals, is it the most competitive regionals ever been? Maybe, but how about this? The current patch 13.9b is the most balanced and interesting patch ever for a regionals competition. Let's go the other way. Admirable.
The most balanced and interesting patch ever for a regionals competition. I'm going to disagree simply for kind of the reason that I said earlier, which players keep getting better. I think there's a good chance that I just misevaluated patches earlier in the game. And I think, honestly, that might be just what everyone has done. This is a very difficult question. I'm going with like a default disagree because it's hard for me to know what's happening here. I wasn't around for set 3, to be fair. So
set 3 was
not balanced.
It's probably the closest, but the reality was a lot of people thought 4.5 wasn't very interesting. I can just try to hop in here. I agree with this actually because 4.5 was like a Slayer's heavy meta, which I don't think was very interesting, and also a little bit too imbalanced around some of these other compositions like that. I think 5.5 was balanced, but not that interesting because those are who opened up Sentinel skirmishers, and those were able to get really early tempo, and that's how like that was dictating a lot of the game. But it was very balanced. Set 6.5 was strikers, right? Everyone would just play strikers over and over with like Sox really the Cipher tech, and it was all about Irelia and things like that. Set 7.5, I don't even really need to talk about it very much. It's dragons and all those different problems that are associated with dragons. So here we are at 8.5. I actually think there's a really strong case for it. The only thing you could possibly convince me is 3.5 potentially contesting it, but also I think that the reason why it's interesting is because we have so many more elements now in this game with augments being in the game, with more data being available than ever. I personally think this is the most balanced, interesting patch we ever had going to regional competition. I wish that we all had the gang together, Soju and Milk and all of them with us to celebrate it, but I do think it's a shame, but also something that makes it even more competitive. All right, let's go to Aesah next.
I would say I agree. I mean, like, I actually feel very similarly to what Admiral said, but then he said default disagree, but I feel very similarly, but I would say default agree. And it's kind of similar to what I said about the players getting better. Like the devs are also getting better. Their team is expanding greatly. They're learning from past mistakes. So I think in general, it's likely that as we move forward, patches like TFT will be more and more balanced in the future.
Great. That's a great answer. And I like that default optimism. DPei.
I think I agree. I don't know the history too well, to be honest, but I think It's definitely, I feel like it's balanced. Playing it, I feel like you can play anything. And I think it's the most interesting. I could be wrong, but with augments being introduced into the game, hero augments being introduced to the game, there are so many different like combinations and permutations that are small edges. Every time you add these mechanics to the game, it creates levels of depth and wideness as well to the game. You might not experience that like in regionals, but I think conceptually, like set 8.5 should be the highest skill cap if it is balanced, and I do think it's like very, very balanced right now for the most part. So I really tend to agree, and I think Riot has done a really good job of adding these interesting game mechanics. I think hero augments are really hard to balance, but I think right now it's like kind of good right now. Really hard to balance, but kind of good right now. So
okay,
yeah,
all right.
I really wholeheartedly agree.
We'll take kind of good from dpei, as chat seems to agree, 67% versus 33. And I think that's a really interesting point that perhaps is going to fly under the radar. Hopefully more in team can see that, because I think that's worth noting. The last agree was something that I've noticed being discussed a little bit around certain circles, which is that this has been the most unreliable data websites have been before a major tournament. There are so many fake stats currently out there. This has been the most unreliable data websites have been before a major tournament. All right, let's go with Aesah first.
Oh, I mean, I completely disagree. I think tactics tools in particular, like I think most of the top players like know how to use it. By top players, I mean like regionals players. I think they know how to use it. And like tactics tools, it's kind of funny. I first said about the players, and I said about the devs. Now I'm saying about Silly Q, who's a one-man team. He, I mean, he's the website is just way better than it used to be. There's like you can look at stuff in way more detail. In set 7, I remember people would just say like, oh, like Cannoneer Crest has like one of the best averages. I'm just gonna pick it, but like you could very easily see that it actually averaged worse than Corki. So it's just like. The only advantage of picking it is you mentally committed yourself to Corki, but you would do better just picking any other augment and then mentally committing to Corki. But now it's like there's so much more detail you can look in stats, and I think most of the regionals players know how to use it.
All right, dpei.
So hard disagree.
Disagree a little bit. I think ladder is a bit fake right now. I like look at people who are playing late at night, and I feel like there are just a bunch of fake like players playing right now because regional players are playing in-houses.
Fake players, man. They're not real. They're not real players.
They're not real humans playing right now. I'm watching like DQA's games, and they're just like, I don't know what I'm watching here. But like, I do agree. Like, stats are never wrong. People are using stats incorrectly, right? Like that is a real thing. And I don't know, people just need to know that this Explorer, I didn't know this Explorer tab existed until like way later, and this Explorer tab is just broken. If you want to get better at the game, use the Explorer tab. I just went to augments before and then went at 2-1, and I was like, bet, it's 2-1. It's pretty good. It's like top 5. No, man, use Explorer and then use your brain. The second part is harder, but use Explorer first, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, for sure, a little disagree, but yeah.
Interesting. Given off of everything you just said, I feel like you should agree, but apparently dpei says everything he said and then disagree, which is like people are pumping fake stats out there. There's not real players. Like
little agree. Sorry, I meant little agree. My bad.
Little agree. A little agree from dpei. A little agree.
Little agree. Yeah. Little agree. Sorry.
All right. Admirable. Please pump some sense into this.
I mean, I cannot even remotely imagine having an aggregate data site that's pulling all the tools and data from the top finishing players on ladder, literally the top ranked ones, and being like, nah, this is inaccurate. Like that is like unfathomable in my head. And to go sets ago.
Just him.
The players playing against Setsuko, Dish Soap. There's tons of. It doesn't matter if you are like 1,000 to 1,500. The skill gap is going to be there. But you know what? When you have that many sample sizes, you're kind of seeing everything get played. And so what ends up happening is you see a balancing of this. When players are worse, you just need a larger sample size. Like, I'm not even kidding. If you pull out the data from Gold 3 and to Diamond 1, what would happen is you would get this such a large sample size that it would start to even out. It would start to equalize. That's how that ends up working. So to kind of get back to the point on this, the way that people use data is still sometimes mind-boggling to me. You don't just go look it up on Explorer and draw your conclusion. Sometimes there's multiple things you have to use in order to find it. It's not just plugging in 3 points and be like, there we go, that's it. It takes a long time. It's a tool. My gosh, it's just unfathomable to me. I hate to flame somebody here, but I'm going to do it. I'm sorry, Kurum. A friend of mine and I are looking at last year during set 7 and watching the way that Kurum is playing on something. And then suddenly he picks an augment and we go, what on earth did he pick that for? And so I go back like 10 seconds and I was like, I bet he's just typing it into tactics.tools. Turn on the audio. Instantly clicks the augment that's performing the best. I was like, I was like, it's horrible in this situation. You have to have the right circumstance for it. And then my friend goes, wait, did he just type it into tactics.tools? He goes and turns on the audio and he goes, you have to be kidding me. And I was just like, I don't understand what happened. Since then, he's gotten a lot better with the tool. I think that it's starting to show a lot of things for him. But there's absolutely no way you have this big of a sample size unless people are purposefully trying to taint the data where you get this large of it and it gets bad or worse or fake. Just no, you have to still interpret the data that's there. You can't just say it's the top performing one and thus conclude that it is. You have to find the reason why it's there. The data doesn't lie. It's the reasons surrounding it or where people lie.
Okay, so you disagree? Like, I'm not entirely sure. You went on a couple of different topics.
There's no fake stats. There's fake interpretations.
Okay, I can't agree with that. So like, I
wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah. That's where my little disagree was. That there's no such thing as a fake stat. It's bad users. Yeah.
Interesting. I guess fake stats here, it can be interpreted literally or in the way TFT says fake stats. So I'm gonna use fake stats here as in that the numbers here aren't actually properly reflected, and I actually do agree with that sentiment. For example, last patch, what was the worst performing hero augment by far? Actually, not even hero augment. The worst performing augment by far last patch was Cleansing Safeguard. But people who knew how to play Cleansing Safeguard last patch actually still found success with it in tournament. If you knew how to, like, for example, abuse the admin AP, the admin mana, for example, and play around Lee Sin 3, still perfectly fine to win lobbies, but it was the worst performing by far. So I will say, yes, there are a lot of misrepresented data that actually has it's bad stats. It's not actually like, it would, based off of that, you would think it's completely unpickable in almost any scenario whatsoever. And the reality is, it was way more pickable than a lot of 2 costs and the whole 2-2-2 hero augment dynamic last patch that was so unhealthy. So I think that there are a lot of fake stats out there. Is it the most unreliable data since they've ever been? Yeah, probably not. There's probably the other patches where it has been worse. So I don't know if I can fully agree with it, but you guys hear exactly where I stand. So, all right, with that, it looks like chat generally disagrees as well. They seem to be all favoring the data stuff. Really interesting questions overall. And thank you so much, guys. That was agree. And with that, we go to the final segment of the show, and then we'll release dpei to play some more in-houses. Don't you worry, buddy. We'll get you. We'll get you in there. So the way this fantasy draft works, pretty straightforward. You get a budget of $100, and from it, you have to spend drafting based off the offering. So let me go ahead and pull it up real quick. Okay, are you familiar? So basically, you take your turns offering up for bid, and then you basically bid up until people stop, and then you have a budget of $100. Make sure you always can bid minimum $1 on the person for the fantasy draft. Let's get started with the draft. So, Admirable, you will be offering first for the fantasy draft.
I'm putting up Setsuko first, $1.
Setsuko for $1.
Oh, I'll take Setsuko for like $35.
$35. Aesah immediately breaking the bank for $35.
That escalated quickly. I think I'm good.
I mean, okay, 35 is kind of a steal if you guys want. Just let them go.
Based on how the values fall, it could end up being a steal. Admirable, you put him up for $1. Do you want to go with 36?
Are you bidding?
I'm not gonna tell you. What?
Well, isn't it your turn now?
No, that's not how it works. Anybody can bid on it. All right, Setsuko going to Aesah for 35. Going once. Going twice.
36.
Okay, Admiral puts up for 36.
I go 37.
38.
30. Ooh.
39.
Dang.
39 for Setsuko. Aesah, wow. For the record, we have rarely entered the 40s. When we did, there's some pretty interesting territory. So, for example, we went 40 on dish soap before. We've gone 40 on socks. We've gotten 44 on Renzer.
What about the 90s?
It's happened
There's only one
time.
player to have breached the 90s.
It has happened one time.
This list is harder to go 90 on because there's only 24 people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Setsuko 39. Aesah going once. Going twice.
GG's.
Sold. Nice job. Setsuko, first pick for 39 big ones. All right. Aesah, you're up next for offering.
I'll put up dpei for $1.
I'll take myself for 2.
I'll put dpei up at $5 for dpei.
Surely I want to get myself, right?
Theoretically, yes. We want people to bet on themselves in this show.
I believe in myself for this tournament, but I don't believe some dollar amount in myself. Let's go 8.
dpei for 8. I'll push you to 10. dpei for 10.
Damn, that was my lucky number, man. 15 for myself.
Ooh.
That should scare you off. Surely. Should I just inflate my own value? Fuck, like just do it clear style.
16 for dpei. 16 for dpei. 60. You'll go 17 for yourself, right? It's
17. Oh no, but now you're just jacking up my price, man.
You'll go 17 for yourself, right?
17 for myself. Yes.
Dude, dpei might be the worst drafter I've ever seen. Besides the bumps.
It's okay. I actually think I can get the rest, but I don't even know how much I believe in myself for 17. But let's go 17, man. Let's go 17. We can do it.
All right. 17 for dpei. Do you want to push him higher? Admiral, you can push him higher if you want.
All right. My strategy set in stone.
I'm not going higher than 17 for this dpei fucker.
all right. dpei 17 going once. Going twice. Wow, dpei getting himself for $17, which is about average value. I don't mind that whatsoever. Okay, so dpei, you're up for next in terms of offering.
Let's put up Bosso skills.
Okay, Bosso skills. Ooh, for how much? What's your starting bid?
Oh, $5.
$5 for Bosso skills. I'm out. Admiral Aesah?
I'm not gonna. It's tempting, but I my strategy feels pretty set for now.
At
least for the first 2 rounds.
dpei can have them.
All right, Bosso skills to dpei for $5.
I think Bosso's sick. That's a bargain.
No, I know it is. The first 2 rounds I had set.
Or did you just overpay? I think I would have maybe bet it like $2 for him.
I'm okay with 5. I have a lot of money for 3 guys. It's all good, I think.
All right. I'm next for offering. I'm gonna go replay for $12.
16.
16. $17 for replay.
20.
21 for replay. 21 for replay. Going once. Going twice. Sold to me for 21. Wow.
Yeah, that's really good.
Hopefully that ends up being the pick of the draft based off the hype that he's getting. But of course, we'll see. Admirable, you're up next. Offering.
Dish soap for 1.
Okay, dish soap for 15.
I'll go dish soap for 35.
Oh my god, Aesah's all in on the dish soap and Setsuko. Let's jack him up. 36 for dish soap.
37.
Ooh, a 3-way bid. 38.
Oh, you said it first.
I did say it first.
I'll say 39.
Oh, all right. Anyone want to go 40 for dish soap? Aesah, you want to go 40? Come on, you want Setsuko and dish soap? Like, what isn't that cracked?
Oh, I'm good, thanks.
39 to dish soap for Admirable.
I feel like that's too cheap. Like dish soap is so
40
good.
for dish soap. 40 for dish soap. 40 for dish soap.
Wow, Dan's going 40. Dang, DPei's draft is so good right now.
40. Dude, he took
41.
42 for dish soap.
All right, so now I did account for if this happened where I had to spend too much on dish soap. 42.
Wait, that's not even that much though. If you think he's like that much better
it's
than
a lot.
Setsuko. But you went 38 off.
I have to deviate my strategy
All right.
if I have to bid this much is what I'm saying.
Okay,
I
okay.
drew up 3 lines.
I see.
Okay. Okay, I'm out. 42 for dish soap for admirable. Going once. Going twice.
I want to just mess up his strategy, but it's okay.
Dish soap to admirable for $42, highest of the night so far, which I think is accurate in terms of reflecting it. But we'll see. It's hard because that means dish soap has to go really big to get that value. But he is one of the most likely players to do so. Okay, Aesah, you're back up.
I'll go Robin for 32.
Robin songs 32, 33 from me. 33 for Robin songs. For me, Robin's won me fantasy many times this set. I'm ready to go. 33 for Robin songs. The Frodan. Going once.
I'll go 34. Robin's a beast. I believe in Robin.
Woo! I mean, let's see. Looking at his match history profile, looks like he's been getting a lot of seconds and thirds. dpei, admirable.
I'm good.
All right, Robin songs, 33, going once, going twice. All right.
Wait, I said 34 already. Did I?
I said 34. Okay, 34. 34. Sorry, that was a little bit of my mistake there. Wow, Aesah, $27.
Wait,
All
you're
right.
saying I could have gone for 33? All right, it's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
This guy might be to quote
You
you,
were 33.
might be the worst drafter ever on the show. We'll see. All right, dpei, you're next up to offering.
Let's put up my boy, my guy, Ripple Overdrive. We'll start it at 20.
I'll go 22. 22 on Ripple Overdrive.
25.
26.
28.
I'll go 30.
31.
33.
Man, you're just taking the guys in my study group, man. I'll take. How much did you do?
33. So you have to go 34 or higher.
34.
35. 35.
Wow.
Wait, how come this guy's in your study group and then you got yourself for 17 and you're like rank 1 right now or something? Like,
Wait, what?
didn't you get yourself for a steal then? If that's what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I was saying from the start.
Assuming you think that they're equal in caliber.
I don't think because we talk to each other,
good.
I'm as good as him. He's better than me for sure, I think. You're at what was the number? I'm sorry.
I said 34. Right.
35.
36.
37.
38.
I'm good.
38 for Ripple?
No. 39.
Oh man.
Yeah, 39.
All right. I think I properly made dpei paid to equal out both himself and Ripple. Plus, I love that dpei put Ripple as number 1, and now he's tying Setsu.
Yeah,
I think it's a great storyline.
I knew you were baiting. Yeah, I knew you were baiting me. So you wanted equivalent values, like out of it. I saw it, but yeah. I think it's worth. I think it's worth the money.
Damn. All right. I'm up next. I'm gonna put up Aesah for $1.
Oh,
that's too high. I'm
willing to pay. Let's see. I'll take myself for 6, but no more than 6. So if you guys want me, then go ahead.
Admiral, do you want Aesah for $7?
I kind of do.
I won't be upset.
$7 is pretty big. That's a pretty big steal.
I don't feel like Aesah can be bad. That's the way it feels like to me.
Yeah, and remember, the format of this tournament is you want people that are really likely to advance day after day. I will take Aesah. I will take Aesah for $7.
Wow, Aesah's actually out. This is kind of crazy.
Aesah's actually out, isn't he? He's the man of his word. He won't bet himself for more than 8. You said 8?
No.
Oh, okay. Admirable.
You thought he was lying to bait.
No. I wasn't sure. Admirable. All right, Aesah for
Yeah, I'll take
7
Aesah
going
for
once.
I'll take
Aesah
it for 8. Yeah.
$8. All right, I'm out. Aesah. Going once. Going twice. Just open Aesah. Not bad. Wow, Aesah wouldn't even put himself. The fact that Aesah doesn't even have confidence himself to go beyond 6 is was probably where I saw. I would have bid up Aesah up to probably about 10 otherwise. 10 to 11. Okay. Admirable.
Clear $1.
Oh geez. Clear for $1. Don't all jump in at once, guys. Clear for $1 going once. Clear for $1 going twice. Sold. That's admirable. Clear for $1.
Let's go. That is free.
I wanted to wager on him more, but I thought it would be funny if he ranked himself ranked 1 and then nobody else evaluated him that way. But just for the memes, literally just for the memes, because $1 was like too good of a price. But I thought it'd be fucking hilarious. I thought it'd be fucking hilarious if he's the only one and then he gets bidded up for $1.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Worth though. Worth.
When Admiral said that's free, he was talking about clear, right?
I mean, that's the closest thing you can do to bid to get it for free. Correct. $1 is basically you got him for free. All right, Aesah, you're up next.
Okay. I'll take Chromex for 25, which is the highest I can bid.
Max bet.
I'll take Carmax for 26.
Bro.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I didn't really expect to get him, but it's okay.
I'll take Kerm for 27. Okay, Kermex 27.
28.
29.
I'm out.
29 for Kermex going once.
Wait, can I take a loan?
Going once. Going twice. Let's go, Kurum! 29. Welcome to the winning team, brother. dpei. You're up next for offering.
I'm going to offer Spetham for 5.
Ooh, Spetham. $5. I'll go $6 for Spetham.
I'll go 8.
9.
10.
11.
I'm out.
11 for Spetham.
Wow.
Any takers?
I have a game plan, man. I don't know how to draft strategically.
I believe you.
12.
12 for Admirable, which leaves him with 37. Interesting. 13 for Spetham.
I mean, surely Spetham is worth more than DTIYDK, right?
Based off the power.
And bet,
Yeah,
then wager, or not wager, then make a bid.
Oh, I
then.
already know who I want on my team, though.
Okay,
You need 3 more picks on your team.
so Spetham
Okay,
for
I'll- 13,
13, right? Is that the current thing?
Yeah, but I need. Okay, fine. I'll take Spetham for 14. You convinced me, Dan.
Is everyone else out? Admiral, you're out. dpei, you're out. Spetham 14 going once, going twice. All right, Aesah, you got Spetham for $14. All right, who's up next? Is it me?
Yeah.
Oh man, the way this draft played out was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Spetham is, oh, jeez.
I'm gonna
Maybe I should've
take.
taken that one.
I'm gonna bid on Malala for $5. Malala for $5.
6.
7,
8.
9. Malala for $9. Going once. Going twice. Sold to me for $9.
Jesus.
That's actually that has some really big upside. That's a really big upside pick. All right, I'm actually really happy. Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah, your team's looking kind of cracked. It's kind of like appropriately priced, I think.
We'll see. Admirable, you're up next.
Kyvix 1.
I'll go 5 for Kyvix.
6 for Kyvix.
7.
8 for Kyvix.
9.
10.
11.
12.
13,
14,
15,
16.
17.
Is that dpei's value? Do we think this Kyvis guy is worth as much as dpei? 18.
Nope. Oh gosh. 19.
Anyone else takers? Kyvix for 19 going once. Kyvix for 19 going twice. Congratulations, Adderville. You are the owner of a brand new Kyvix. All right.
I'll put up QQ for 1. Fuck you guys. Oh, sorry. Should I not say that? My bad.
You can.
I can. Okay. I can never remember
guys.
like Giant Slayer.
All right. Juki for 1. That's a pretty underground pick, man. Juki for 1. Going once? Going twice? Does no one believe in this guy? All right. Juki for $1 going to Aesah.
All right. I was going to overpay for him, I guess. So
we'll see. I think a lot of people he's an unproven commodity. I could totally see him get to day 3, but like, you know, I just don't have visibility on him. He's one of the few players that I don't. And also, is he going to be on a cruise or not? We'll find out. Does this guy have available internet connection? I'm sure he does. All right, dpei, you're up for offering.
I'm going Roby for 1.
I'm going to go Robovan for 2.
I'll speed it up and go 5. Sorry. that's my bad. I don't.
Sure.
I'll go 5.
I'm out. Admirable, Aesah? Aesah, you could technically just clean it up here if you want Robovan to last.
Oh, I want Socks. I don't know if I can get him, but that's what I want on my team. But anyway, I'm out.
All right, Admirable. Robovan for 5 going once. Going twice. Sold to dpei for 5 cold ones. And I'm just going to get this out of the way because it's been very clear what I try to start to do. So I'm going to bid Wage and Iverson for 34 or 34, I believe, because dpei can't go 35. So I'm going to take Wage in for 35.
Dang.
Okay.
I fucked up this draft, man. Oh, I fucked up this draft.
Wait, yeah, you said 34, just so you know.
I'm sorry, 34. You're right.
35 if you want.
Sorry, 34. You're right. So 35. Thank you. I mean, it's okay because I don't get to pick anymore for the rest of the draft. So Admirable.
I don't.
You can basically pick whoever you want in your last one. Basically, everyone can take turns except for Aesah and dpei, but Admirable, you can bid up to 30 on somebody if you want.
Yeah, I mean, dpei, I think you did a pretty good job with this one, honestly. You ended up $4
But I have $34 left for like
DQA. You got 34 left for DQA, man.
No, man.
All right, Admirable, it's up to you.
Yeah, I'll take DQA.
For how much?
30,
max.
Micah?
30 for DQA. All right.
I only have one spot. The strat was to get you to bid for somebody and then take Wage and Iverson. I missed.
dpei, do you want to bid 31 on DQA?
Oh, no, I'm good.
All right, DQA to Admirable for 30 big ones. Nice. All right, Aesah, you can bid up to 12.
Wait, who do you want? I mean, obviously you can pick anyone you want.
Yeah.
You really want Socks, right? You can have Socks.
Oh, bet. I'll take Socks for 12.
All right, Socks for 12. And dpei, who do you want?
It's a really good question. Can I shift my money amount to like raise my value here and spend $1 on this person and then transfer all that money to my salary in my bid to make me look like I'm exceptional? Is that a possibility?
No. You have to spend you have to spend $34 on this person.
Okay. I am a believer in Kindle Gem. I don't know why. He just I'm a believer. I didn't put this guy on my list, but I'm a believer in Kindle Gem.
No way, man.
Am I betting 35? Like, I don't get it. Like, 34 for him? Like, this guy's the highest paid dude on my roster? There's no way. Oh, no.
Ripple and Kindle Gem, man.
I am bidding 34 on the Kaisa one trick. Like a beast. Okay. It's all,
you might be a worse drafter than Coupon.
Yeah. I was trying to get Wajin, and I was trying to, because like Roby is a good pick for $5, but it doesn't matter because I didn't end up with enough money. There weren't enough like 34 players at the end. That was my bad.
This guy paid as much for Kindle Gyms as I paid for Robin songs.
That's why. Yeah. But Kindle Gems, no. He's actually like starting now. I don't know if Kindle Gem's watching, but he's now my boy. He just played the weirdest shits in our in-houses and just dominated. He was going to be my $1 and 38 was going to go to Wasian, but you kept above me, so it was a bit annoying. But yeah.
Hey, here's all I'm saying. Robin Song's AVP so far this set has been 414. Kindle Gems has been 395.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know they nerfed Aesah, right?
No. Trust me.
No, Paisanos, man.
The patch and
yeah. I got you. All right, I'm gonna just go with an underdog pick here because I think that it's pretty cool to be able to put your eggs into a basket of someone that's kind of unproven, and I think that it's a player that might impress people. So I'm gonna go with Yunwolf. I believe in LCQ. I think players that come through it are generally pretty strong. Especially because it's recent, right? It's also like not too different from the previous patch. So Yunwolf also is kind of tearing up on ladder. So let's go.
Wait,
$7.
The set 7 LCQ players went like Giga 8.
Okay, but not this set, Aesah. Not this set.
Okay, I got you.
Set. I believe in that. I think Yunwolf might be the sleeper pick of the draft. All right. So with that, who do you think won the draft? I think that was a really fun one. Let's go ahead and do some closing of this section. So let's go with the pretty obvious thing. We have the regional finals. It'll be casted by myself and Admirable. We're going to be a team. We have Crowan and Casanova back, and we've got Necra, and that's going to be the main broadcast. North American production, we might not have the flashing lights and the crazy production value in the hype trailers, but we got the best looking casters at least. We got that going on for us. And these will be the players competing, as you mentioned, as we do have... people want to vote on the actual teams. You need to look up their fan draft. Okay, we'll pull it up here. But that's going to all start tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/teamfighttactics. If you guys want to take a look at the the fantasy teams one last time so you can take a look at who is the best. I'm pretty sure my team is super cracked because I'm sorting for who is most likely to make it far in the tournament and make it to day 3, because that usually is the deciding factor of who wins fantasy, not who wins the tournament. I'm pretty sure my roster is absolutely stacked.
I think I have like a really good budget roster, and then I just spent $33 more on Kindle Gem than I needed to, I think.
So that's actually true. That's actually true.
I think it could have been really good, but I miscalculated. It was an off by 1 error, which, it's all, like I was in computer science. That happens all the time. Like it's fine, I think. Next time. I'll get them next time.
Dude, a lot of people are picking Aesah. Name recognition is really powerful in Aesah's team. He's got Setsuko, Robin, Sox, and Speth in those recent Wet Mecha Cup winners. So maybe Aesah has cleaned up the draft, but we'll see. I mean,
the moment I got Robin on my team for 34, I already knew I won. So
you sure, man? You sure you weren't watching Robin run it down the past couple of days?
I'm 100% sure I already won.
Okay. Spetham, honestly, I think is probably the standout for value here. Like 14 for Spetham.
What about Clear?
So torn.
Clear for $1?
Well, no one's bidding on Clear except for me. That's just kind of the way that always works.
Oh, I mean, I would have been willing to pay 2 for Clear, but I didn't. Yeah.
Okay. You couldn't afford it at the time. I get it.
Very, very fun indeed. Looks like chat thinks Aesah is the best team, followed by myself, then Admirable, but everyone has pretty much agreed DPei has the worst fantasy team.
Come on.
And with that,
no.
Let's get some final words. Let's get some final words and send off our lovely guests over to the in-houses as well. So, DPei, some final words for this episode.
Thanks for having me on. I think I've listened to this podcast, so it's really nice to be a part of the scene. I think I'm really excited for this tournament. I again think it's going to be like the most hyped or like the most competitive tournament, and it's going to express a lot of skills. So if you're a big fan of TFT or watching Clutch Moments, I think there's going to be a lot of that, because I feel like you can play the game 100 different ways this patch, and all could be correct. So I'm really excited. I think it'll be a good tournament. So yeah.
All right, that's great. Aesah.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait to win the fantasy draft, and maybe I'll make day 2 in the tournament also, but we'll see.
Oh, that's true. You could guarantee win it by day 1, so Admirable doesn't actually win the tournament. So
Don't worry about Admirable anyway. So.
All right, Admirable. Final words, man.
Yeah, Aesah, please don't troll me. It's going to be a lot harder to edit that Twitter clip now that I don't have just a killer one-liner from Bryce, where like I'm always struggling to figure out which one-liner from Bryce I'm going to pick for it. And now I just have one-liners from me. Ugh, that's going to be way harder. This is a lot of fun to do. I always have a ton of fun watching, and my gosh, did a lot of fun to be here. I always like watching the fantasy drafts. Being able to actually participate in one, it's a lot different than I thought it would be, but in a good way. And I was like, wow, this is just a lot tougher than this. There's only one player here that's an idiot this time. But yeah, it's just, I can't wait to see this regionals. I think it's easily the toughest one that I have seen put together, for NA at least. Obviously Europe's not as hard. But for NA, this is like the most stacked one. I can't wait to see it this weekend.
It's going to be great. 2 things. Last words from me. I'm really excited to cast with you, Admirable, but 2 last quick things from me. 1, esports.gg/TFTPR. It does us a lot of wonders to help the podcast. If you visit this page, generate some traffic, click around, look at who has the best ballots, things like that, because they do all that stuff for free so that we can host it and hopefully we can grow that more. So just driving traffic towards esports media, because they've done a great job to support TFT. And they have some articles, by the way. They have some articles on like the TFT scene in terms of like just putting out content about competitive. So check that out. The second thing is we've officially moved our YouTube channel to youtube.com/@DTIYDK. That's just to separate the channel from other things that we did, because it used to be on my channel. So if you guys want to subscribe, make sure to check that out. I'm just going to type it in chat, youtube.com/@DTIYDK. Like and subscribe there, and that helps us a lot as well. I'm going to rate DQA. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Don't Talk If You Don't Know, episode number 23, North American Regionals Preview for Monsters Tac. And we'll see you guys next time for more TFT action.